Welcome to the C-Suite series presented by ChannelCheck and Noble Capital Markets. Noble is an SEC-registered, FINRA-licensed broker-dealer and the source of the equity research available on ChannelCheck. Today's interview features Cocrystal Pharma, NASDAQ ticker symbol COCP. Noble Senior Research Analyst Robert LeBoyer interviews Cocrystal Pharma CFO and co-CEO James Martin. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on Cocrystal Pharma, all at no cost. And now, here's Robert and James.
I'm Robert LeBoyer, Senior Biotechnology Analyst at Noble Capital Markets. It's my pleasure to introduce James Martin, Cocrystal Pharma's Co-Chief Executive Officer and Chief Financial Officer, to the ChannelCheck C-Suite series. Jim joined Cocrystal in 2017 and has more than 25 years finance and management experience, including providing financial leadership to commercial stage, publicly traded health science companies. Among his previous experience, he served as the CFO of the medical device company Ascenius Surgical, formerly known as Safe Stitch Medical, and CFO of pharmaceutical development and manufacturing company VBI Vaccines, formerly known as Cyvac Therapeutics. Jim holds an undergraduate degree in business administration and an MBA from Barry University in Miami. He's also a certified public accountant. Cocrystal is focused on the discovery and development of novel antiviral. The stock is traded on the NASDAQ under the ticker COCP. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Robert.
Could you give our audience some background on Cocrystal?
Sure. So the company was founded by Dr. Roger Kornberg, Dr. Sam Lee, who are both still with the company, and the late Dr. Gary Wilcox. The company was financed by Dr. Philip Frost. The vision of the company when they founded it was to create pan-viral therapeutics. These would be both potent and broad spectrum antiviral drugs, and they had some great ideas, and with the proper financing they formed the company.
Great. And what sets Cocrystal apart from other companies developing antivirals?
So the company has a very powerful drug discovery platform, and this platform was part of the early founding of the company when it was developed. It was leveraging Dr. Kornberg's expertise in what he won his Nobel laureate prize in. And this platform was recognized actually by Merck, and as part of our collaboration with them to create an Influenza A antiviral. So it's a very powerful drug discovery platform that we have. We are able to do things that other companies are unable to. And with this platform, we continue to develop broad spectrum potent antiviral drugs, including super broad spectrum, such as our norovirus and coronavirus, CDI-988, that we currently have in a phase 1 trial.
Yes, Roger Kornberg is unusual in that both he and his father were Nobel laureates. And his father was one who would contribute to some of the breakthroughs in structural genetics, and was one that I knew as an undergraduate. But could you provide a progress update on your Influenza A clinical development?
Sure, and to add to your story, Roger's father had found this young scientist that he really took a liking to, which was Dr. Sam Lee, president, co-CEO of the company. And then these end up working with Roger's father and then with Roger Kornberg. So Sam got to work with both the Kornbergs before they formed the company. So, and he was one of the people, Sam was one of the people they wanted to bring in to form the company because of his energy and enthusiasm to develop antiviral drugs. So a little background there. So on our Influenza A clinical trial, we have completed a phase 1 clinical trial, and in that we have shown favorable safety and tolerability of our influenza candidate, which is the goal of a phase 1 trial, is to test for safety and tolerability. And many drugs will fail phase 1s because of toxicity. So we passed very favorably. And as I say, a lot of this goes to the preclinical work that we put into these drug candidates before we put them in clinical trials, because clinical trials are very expensive and you really want to make sure that you have the best chances of success. So a lot of work was done. We came out with very favorable data. We presented this data at the International Society for Influenza and Other Respiratory Diseases. It was very compelling data. And then we applied for a phase 2A trial in the UK, one that's called a human challenge model. And just recently in October, actually just a couple of weeks ago, reported that that trial has been approved. So the bottom line is we're November 16th right now, and this year, so within the next 45 days, we'll be initiating that phase 2A trial in the UK, and including dosing is what our plans are.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this is a human challenge study. And when I looked into the design, I thought it was very interesting. And could you describe some of the advantages that the human challenge study has over the standard clinical trial design?
Sure. So first, to differentiate them, a standard clinical design, you have to go out and find patients. In this case, we're talking about influenza A. Then you have to test them once you find them, and you're not sure where they're at in that cycle of the sickness, and you're not even sure which strain they have. So it's just a lot of hoping to get the right patients in. A human challenge model, which we're doing, is a very clean trial, in that you take healthy patients, you test them to make sure they haven't had the disease before, they don't have any antibodies. You really get to know your subject before you dose them with influenza. You wait for this influenza to take effect, because sometimes it doesn't. A strong immune system is a great thing, and sometimes it doesn't take effect, which is always good to know for the audience. But obviously people do, once they're dosed, they do catch the influenza, and then we apply our therapeutic to it. So it's a very clean trial. It can be expedited much quicker than a traditional trial, where you're trying to find patients at the right time in the right cycle of their disease, and it also can reduce costs, because all of that, trying to find someone with the right strain of influenza A in the right time, can be very costly. So it's about the speed, the costs, that really make this phase 2A trial very compelling. And the data from a phase 2, as a phase 1 test for safety and tolerability, a phase 2 test for efficacy does this really work? I mean, okay, we know it's safe in a phase 1. Body can tolerate it. We kind of know the dosing now. So the phase 2 is very important to really make sure in humans, we've tested outside of humans, but in live humans, that it works. And that's the trial that we are initiating now, and we'll hope to have results early next year.
That's great. It sounds as if you're controlling both the entry of the patients, the amount of virus they get, the strain, and you're controlling all of the time factors. So you're eliminating a lot of the variables that would require a large and long trial. So you'll get better data sooner.
That's the idea, Robert.
Great. Okay. And what kind of market opportunity do you see with an influenza antiviral? Is this for prevention or treatment, or what exactly do you see in the marketplace?
There's a need for both. A preventative therapeutic, also known as a prophylactic. There's vaccines out there. The challenge with vaccines is the prediction of which strain of influenza is going to be prevalent, and that's a challenge that anyone you speak to, agrees that's not going to go away. It's very difficult, and that's why the vaccines can have a lot of challenges where you'll take a vaccine and still catch influenza because it's hard to predict the strain. The therapeutics, as I like to say, it's a 1-2 punch. In any disease, it would be great to have a good vaccine and a good therapeutic, or with modern technology, you get 2 in 1. It's a vaccine and a therapeutic, but that's for another day. But our therapeutic is, which is the one that's going into a phase 2A, is an oral pill, which is very nice because an oral pill you can give them out in blister packs and people can store them, and it's a lot more availability than say a shot or intravenously, which we can do formulation with this compound on, but what we're developing is an oral pill, so that's very helpful to get out to the society. The other thing that we have is the actual flu virus, like most viruses, is very difficult to control as far as the mutations go. And the way we develop these compounds is we do take all the known strains and all the known variants, and using our crystallography technology, we will sort of overlay a roadmap, near atomic level roadmap of the virus to find a very highly conserved area in the replication. So no matter which strain is out there, you have one area that we found that is necessary for every strain of the virus to continue to replicate. And that's the area that takes a lot of time to develop, and also cannot be mutated around. If you mutate around it, then the virus can't replicate. So this is a very powerful way of going after these viruses.
Okay, it sounds like this would be a universal vaccine for all strains.
That's what we're shooting for. Very broad spectrum, very potent antiviral. And so far, we haven't seen anything to tell us otherwise.
Great. Where do you stand on the phase 1 clinical trial with the first dual antiviral candidate for coronavirus and norovirus? And why do you think that drug will work for both?
So, as I'd said, the vision of the company was to create these pan-viral compounds. So we're really working on developing compounds that are very potent, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about in the sense of how a lot of drugs were repurposed during COVID to go after COVID. I mean, drugs that were developed for one indication were able to help out with COVID-19. We're actually developing compounds that can go after 2 indications. So we're not developing and repurposing, we're developing it to go after. These 2 diseases have very similar structures that we can use our compound to bind to stop the replication. And we've seen this in our preclinical work in both of those indications, coronaviruses, including COVID-19, and norovirus. So when we were selecting a candidate, 988, our internal name for it, CDI 988, came up as the best opportunity. And so we really feel pretty strong that this compound will work on both indications, enough to bring it into a clinical trial as a phase 1. As far as cost savings go, you will not have to do another phase 1 for CDI 988 for either indication, because it's testing safety and tolerability, which as long as safety and tolerability, then the next step, would be a phase 2. You'd have to do that separately for indication to test for efficacy, but you only have to do one phase 1. So we're actually gaining some cost savings there, which we're always happy about.
Yeah, good efficient plan. And norovirus isn't nearly as well known as some of the other viruses that you're developing drugs against. Why is developing an antiviral for norovirus so important?
Well, a lot of people may not know, but there is no vaccine for norovirus, and there's no therapeutic for norovirus. There's nothing, and this is a very a terrible disease that's highly contagious. The good news is it doesn't result in a lot of deaths, but it really makes people that get it wish. I've been quoted, they wish they were dead. It's so bad. So it affects it affects healthcare areas, and it can last for months because of the way it's so highly contagious. It just keeps circulating when it gets into healthcare facilities. There's multiple cases of restaurants, cruise ships that have to be turned back, daycares and schools with children. It affects them. There's cases of that, and it's also, there's a military interest for there, and anywhere there's a lot of humans in close contact. The norovirus is a potential catastrophe because of, again, how contagious it is and how bad the symptoms are to the people that have to go through that disease. So being that there's no vaccine, no therapeutic, it is a very wide open market that is looking for some type of solution. We think we have that solution with our 988 compound that's currently in a phase 1 clinical trial.
Yes, you mentioned cruise ship illness, and that's really the association I had with norovirus. But anytime you have a lot of people living in a confined space, whether it's a dormitory, a hospital, or like you mentioned, daycare centers, norovirus is a threat and leads to severe gastroenteritis and hospitalization. So it may not kill that many people, but it is certainly an important indication. So could the same drug candidate be applicable to future potential outbreaks in other coronaviruses, such as SARS or MERS, the Middle East respiratory virus?
Yeah, I mean, as I had said earlier, we developed this compound to be very broad spectrum, and we tested against all strains. Although COVID-19 kind of is a buzzword for the compound, it really is a coronavirus compound. So both SARS and MERS, those are all coronaviruses, and those are part of the group of viruses, the strains of coronavirus, including COVID-19, Omicron, and all those that we actually overlaid, and we made sure that this compound would affect the replication and stop the virus. So yes, definitely, this is really a coronavirus antiviral compound. So it includes all of the SARS, MERS, and COVID-19, and it is a very broad spectrum, potent compound, even affects norovirus, and it's currently in a phase 1 clinical trial. And so far that trial is moving right along, and we look forward to getting the results.
So if I understand what you're saying, the virus that causes COVID-19 is part of the coronavirus family, and the drug you're working on would affect all of the viruses within that family, such as SARS and any of the other viruses that can cause illness.
Yeah, exactly, Robert. That's the way we developed it.
Great. Okay. And what can we expect from Cocrystal in the coming months?
Well, I mean, this year was a lot of work getting these compounds into clinical all the clinical work, all the approvals. We did finish off the phase 1 on the influenza, but really it was about getting into trials was the news. So what we're going to expect next is to get the good stuff, which is the data. And data is everything in this business. And that'll be coming out for both the phase 1 that started earlier this year, and that's for both norovirus and coronavirus. And we also, as I said here, in the next few days, by the end of the year, we expect to be dosing our phase 2. So we'll be seeing clinical data coming out of that too. And that's huge. That's a phase 2A for efficacy. And of course, we expect to go into additional clinical trials once we complete the phase 1. Expect that would be also in 2024. So 2023 was a lot of getting into clinical trials. 2024, we expect to see a lot of coming out and data coming out of that. And that data is very important. We're in a lot of discussions all the time, go to a lot of we travel a lot, do a lot of meetings with different groups that are really interested in the data that comes out, both, private industry companies and in the government. So these government agencies, they're very, they're very aware of what happened with COVID-19, and they really want to make sure that they're prepared for an influenza outbreak or another coronavirus outbreak. I mean, there's within BARDA a big concern about that, and they did a great job, but they really want to get better prepared. I mean, the realization of these diseases and the outbreaks is it's not really getting any better as we move forward. So they want to be prepared.
Great, yeah, and they've allocated a lot of funds for preparation, so I think this is going very well. And the company, as you mentioned, made a transition from preclinical to clinical trials showing safety, and now in 2024 you're going to have data showing phase 2 efficacy in the influenza trial. So a lot ahead. A lot of important milestones, both achieved this year and ahead next year.
Yep. And some of these programs I mentioned, and within BARDA, they actually have a program called PrEP. And that's part of preparing. There's other programs that we're working on, but that data is required. You have to check that box. And then there's of course the private industry that's always looking for the next big thing. So we 2024 should be an exciting year if this data comes out. So far, so good. Clinical trials are difficult. It's make it or break it for a company. And so far, so good. Knock on wood. And that's what we're looking forward to, Robert.
Great. Okay, well, congratulations on all the progress that you've made in the past year. And we'll be looking forward to the data announcements coming in 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
NobleCon 19 at Florida Atlantic University. Located at the center of one of South Florida's most vibrant and fastest growing cities, Boca Raton offers an unparalleled cultural, recreational, educational, and business environment, the perfect setting for NobleCon 19. Now in its 19th year, NobleCon 2023 will be our biggest ever. We're inviting more companies, larger companies, and dramatically expanding the investor representation. And with the move to the FAU College of Business Executive Education, all new, state-of-the-art 50,000 square foot facility, NobleCon is the gold standard on the conference circuit. NobleCon 19 at FAU. It's time to invest in knowledge.